Welcome back to another episode. Today we are talking about NFL free agency. Who are the winners? George, who are your winners of the NFL free agency?
I think the winner of the NFL free agency in the offseason was the Houston Texans. They got Stephon Diggs and Joe Mixon, also while keeping their quarterback, C.J. Stroud. This is huge for them. They did pretty good last season, and with these new two assets, they can do even better this year. Carson, what do you think?
I actually think the Chicago Bears, because they practically just got a rebuild. They got so many young new players, and over time they'll become a very good team of experienced players, which will be really good for them, especially because they've always been a bad team.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you, but I got to go with the Philadelphia Eagles. They were already good as they were, but they signed some players, and they also re-signed some players, such as C.J. Gardner-Johnson, and they brought in Saquon Barkley. Their defense is amazing, and now they have an elite running back, which they really didn't have last season in DeAndre Swift. But I do got to agree with Carson and George. They both had great seasons. The Bears were really good. They got some young studs. But the question is, will those young studs be able to come in and perform right away? Or will they need to be able to, get more experience in the league? And George, the Houston Texans were a great team last year, very underrated. And now that they got big-name players such as Stephon Diggs and Joe Mixon, they will be dangerous. So now that we got winners, who are the losers of NFL free agency? I got to go with the Los Angeles Chargers. What about you, George?
I think the loser has to be the Dallas Cowboys. I didn't see any big moves from the Dallas Cowboys except signing all their old players. The old players didn't do good last season. They might be a playoff team this year, but they are not going to get any further than they did last year.
Carson?
I actually agree with Zane here. Not only were the Los Angeles Chargers not a very good team last year, they didn't really do much with the offseason, which was a very dumb mistake because of how bad they were. I think they should have just kind of did what the Bears did and tried to rebuild because their team was just not it.
So George said that the free agency winners are the Houston Texans, but according to Woj, C.J. Stroud has torn his Achilles tendon during training camp and will likely miss the entirety of the season. Backup QB Davis Mills will be named the tentative starter. Now, that's really big for the Texans. They kind of built their team around C.J. Stroud. They brought in weapons for him to use, like Stephon Diggs and Joe Mixon, but the question is, are those weapons good enough to be good enough for John Wills? What is your opinion on this?
So we saw what the Texans were 2 years ago. They were not good. They won 4 wins. I think they maybe 3 or 4. Last season, when C.J. Stroud came into the league, they went off. They did amazing. They got us to the playoffs. I do not believe they could do that again without C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud is the main part of that team. He holds them together. He was the one who was carrying that team last year.
Carson, what are your opinions on it?
Yeah, kind of like what George said. Before C.J. Stroud, they were a nobody team. But he was so good, the second they bring him in, they gave him Tank Dell, and they just started going off. So I think they started to build their team with C.J. Stroud because once he got on the team, they started doing good. They want him to do even better. And now that he has experience, he'll do even better. So they gave him people like Joe Mixon and Stephon Diggs for C.J. Stroud. But now that he's hurt, kind of their plan for this season is ruined.
Last thing, we've seen this too many times, young players with a lot of potential getting hurt. Hopefully this isn't a pattern for C.J. Stroud, and hopefully he can keep his young career alive and potentially become a great QB and big name. That's it for today. Thanks for tuning in.